The wind howled through the alleyways of Brooklyn as icy rain poured down in sheets. People hurried past, shielding their faces, avoiding puddles and, more importantly, avoiding the people no one wanted to see. People like her. 17-year-old Callie Monroe, soaked to the bone in her ragged hoodie and duct-taped sneakers, crouched beside a garbage bin, clutching a paper bag that held everything she owned in the world: 2 worn shirts, a cracked phone, and a Ziploc bag containing $7.83, the last of her life savings. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her stomach groaned. Her hands shook. She was about to go inside the gas station to buy a microwave burrito when she saw him. A man, maybe in his 50s, sat at the corner of the store's awning. He was slumped over, his hair wild and matted, a hole in his shoe exposing frostbitten toes. His thin fingers clutched a cardboard sign that read, "Please help. Hungry. Cold. No family." Nobody looked at him. Not one person stopped. Callie's heart clenched. She took a deep breath, then slowly reached into her paper bag. She walked over to the man. Rain trickled down her forehead. He didn't look up. "Here," she said softly, kneeling beside him. The man turned his face slightly, enough for her to see his swollen eye and cracked lips. Callie placed her Ziploc bag with all her money into his hand. "It's not much," she whispered, "but it's all I have." The man's body stiffened. He stared at the bag. Then slowly, his eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do this?" he croaked. Callie stood, wiping her soaked sleeves across her face. "Because I've been there. And I know what it feels like when no one sees you." Then she turned away, cold, starving, and now completely broke. The man's mouth dropped open as he watched her disappear into the storm. What he did next would change her life forever. 3 days before that rainy night, Callie was sitting under a broken-down bus shelter, using a cracked tablet she found in a dumpster behind a school. The Wi-Fi signal was weak, but it was enough to scroll through Craigslist for odd jobs: cleaning, lifting boxes, anything that paid cash. But no luck. She bit into a half-eaten muffin she'd found in a trash can near a coffee shop. She didn't care anymore. Shame was a luxury for people with a bed. Callie had been on the streets since her mom passed from a sudden heart attack 6 months ago. No relatives. No guardians. The system never caught up to her. Somehow, she was still surviving. Still trying to get back on her feet. She made money cleaning car windows at red lights. Some people gave her $1. Some yelled at her. Some pretended she didn't exist. She collected every cent. Her plan? Save up enough to get into a temporary shelter that allowed minors. She needed $35. She had $7.83. That night, she curled up behind an auto shop. She laid her head on a stack of flattened cardboard. She clutched her paper bag close to her chest. Her eyes were red, but she didn't cry anymore. She couldn't afford to. The next afternoon, she saw a posting on a pole outside the gas station. Hiring, cashier's assistant, $50 per day. No ID required. Her heart raced. She walked into the store, mustering up courage. But when she asked the manager about the job, he took one look at her dirt-streaked face and torn hoodie and said, "We're not hiring anymore." He didn't even let her speak. Callie stepped out, face flushed. She wanted to scream, to break something, to run. That's when she saw the man. Same spot every day. Same cardboard sign. But today, he looked worse. People walked past like usual. One woman dropped a nickel and scoffed when the man tried to say, "Thank you." Callie watched. She saw the way his shoulders slumped. The way he didn't even bother holding the sign up anymore. And something inside her just broke. It didn't matter that she was starving. It didn't matter that she needed that money. She couldn't ignore the way his eyes looked like hers. She slowly stepped forward. After giving him her last penny, Callie walked toward the alley where she usually slept. The rain was turning to sleet. She was freezing. She sat down behind a dumpster and pulled her hoodie over her head. Then she heard footsteps. She stiffened. A voice spoke. Wait. It was him. The man she gave her money to. But something was different. He stood tall now. His hair was still messy, but his eyes, they were sharp. His lips trembled as he looked at her. I have to tell you something, he said. I wasn't really begging. I was. A loud crash echoed down the alley. Someone screamed from nearby. They both turned to look. The loud crash echoed through the narrow alley like a gunshot. Callie's body flinched, her heart pounding in her ears. She turned sharply, instinctively clutching her empty paper bag as if it could protect her. The man who had followed her, the one she had just given her last dollars to, stood just a few feet away, unmoving. His eyes scanned the darkness beyond the dumpster. Then came the scream again. Distant. Female. Frantic. The man stepped forward. Stay behind me, he said, his voice suddenly calm and commanding. Callie wasn't sure why, but something about the way he said it made her obey. A second later, a shadow dashed across the far end of the alley. A man with a hoodie and a backpack sprinted past the garbage bins. He slipped and fell, crashing into a stack of cans, then jumped up and kept running. Another voice yelled out, "Thief! Someone stop him!" But it was too late. The man had vanished into the night. Callie looked back at the beggar man. He didn't chase. He didn't panic. He just stood there, breathing steady. Who are you? She asked slowly. The man turned to her, eyes thoughtful. My name's Edward. Edward Dean. She squinted. But, why were you begging if you're not homeless? Edward gave her a small smile, the kind that hid more than it showed. Because sometimes, the best way to see who people really are, is to have nothing. Or at least look like you have nothing. He stepped closer and knelt beside her. What you did back there, Callie, not many people would do that. Not when they're cold, hungry, and desperate themselves. Callie blinked. Wait, how do you know my name? He paused, then slowly pulled something from his coat pocket. A laminated photo. It was her. The photo showed her much younger, maybe 10 years old, sitting in a school cafeteria, laughing over a tray of mac and cheese. A red circle was drawn around her face with a pen. Her mouth fell open. That's from when I was in elementary school. Edward nodded. I know. I took this photo. I've been looking for you for a long time. Her blood ran cold. Why? Who are you? He held up a hand. Wait. It's not what you think. I'm not here to hurt you. I owe your mother everything. Her name was Claire, right? Callie froze. Edward took a slow breath. She once saved my life when I had lost everything. And I promised her, if anything ever happened to her, I'd find her daughter. And take care of her. Callie shook her head. But, that doesn't make sense. My mom never said anything about you. I'm not surprised. She didn't want you growing up expecting anything from anyone. She believed in strength, in kindness. And you proved her right tonight, Callie. You gave everything you had, to me. Not knowing that I wasn't who I appeared to be. Edward stood and pulled a phone from his pocket. He tapped a few times. A black SUV pulled up minutes later. Clean, sleek, and completely out of place in the rain-slick alley. Callie's mouth dropped. You have a car? She asked. He nodded. And a home. Several, actually. But the one I want to take you to is just across the bridge. Come on. I don't understand. Are you like, rich? Edward chuckled softly. I'm not rich. I'm wealthy. I own 3 companies. I'm also the silent partner behind a non-profit shelter for teens like you. Callie's legs felt weak. She stepped toward the SUV, then stopped. Wait, what if this is all a trick? What if you're just saying that to, I don't know, kidnap me or something? Edward's eyes softened. You're smart. That's good. But look around you, Callie. Do you really have anything left to lose? She looked down at her soggy sneakers. Her stomach twisted from hunger. Her arms trembled. Then, slowly, she nodded. They drove in silence. The city lights sparkled through the fog as they crossed the Manhattan Bridge. Callie stared out the window, heart thudding. Edward sat beside her quietly, tapping something into his tablet. They arrived at a tall iron gate. Cameras shifted. Lights flickered on. When the gates opened, it revealed a massive modern mansion that looked like something out of a Billionaire's magazine. Sleek glass walls. A marble fountain. Neon blue lights under the driveway. Callie's mouth dropped open. She whispered, "This can't be real." Edward smiled gently. "Come on. There's something inside I want to show you." They walked in. The warmth hit her like a blanket. The scent of vanilla and fresh linen filled the space. Hardwood floors. Huge paintings. A glowing fireplace. He led her to a room with a wall full of photographs. One of them was her mother. Callie covered her mouth. "She was my best friend," Edward said quietly. "And my savior. She gave me a reason to live when I had nothing left." Callie turned to him, tears spilling from her eyes. "I want to return the favor," Edward whispered. "I want to help you, Callie. But not just with a bed or food. I want to give you a future." Callie was speechless. But just as she opened her mouth to respond, bang! A loud crash echoed from upstairs. They both froze. Edward's face turned pale. He whispered, "Stay here." He ran toward the stairs. Callie, heart pounding, crept behind him, even though he told her not to. At the top of the staircase, they saw it. A broken window. Shards of glass on the floor. And a shadow, moving fast across the hallway. A loud bang echoed from upstairs. Edward rushed toward the staircase. Callie, heart racing, ignored his warning and followed. At the top, a window had been shattered. Glass sparkled across the hallway floor like deadly ice. A dark figure slipped down the far corridor, and vanished. Edward didn't hesitate. He sprinted down the hallway, barefoot, with surprising speed for a man who had been slouched under an awning just hours before. "Call security," he shouted back, but Callie didn't know how. Instead, she darted after him, her legs shaking, heart pounding so hard it made her ears ring. They rounded a corner and saw a door swinging open, the back exit. Edward cursed under his breath and took a sharp turn. But by the time they reached the backyard, the intruder was gone. Only the soft rustling of leaves and the distant hum of the city remained. A light rain began to fall. Callie stood in the doorway, chest heaving. Who was that?" Edward turned slowly, his jaw tight. "Someone I didn't expect to show up this soon." They returned to the mansion's main living area. Edward sat down heavily in a leather armchair. He was silent for a long moment, staring into the fireplace. Then he finally spoke. "His name is Victor. He used to be my friend. We built one of my companies together. But greed changed him. He forged documents, stole millions from our foundation, and disappeared before the authorities caught on." Callie sat across from him on the edge of the couch. "Why would he come back?" Edward sighed. Because he knows I was looking for you. And he knows what your mom did for me. He knows about the promise. She frowned. What promise? Edward looked up at her, eyes heavy. Before your mom died, she gave me a letter. She told me I'd know when the right time came to give it to you. I haven't opened it. I figured, she'd want you to read it first. He stood and walked over to a safe built into the wall. With a quiet beep, it clicked open. He returned holding a sealed envelope, yellowed with time, marked in careful handwriting. To my Callie, when she needs me most. Callie's lips trembled as she took it with shaking hands. She opened it slowly. Inside were only a few lines, written in blue ink. Her mother's handwriting was neat, looping, familiar. Callie read it out loud, her voice soft. My sweet Callie. If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you, and that breaks my heart. But I need you to know something important. Years ago, I helped a man who had nothing. I gave him food, shelter, and kindness, things the world forgot to give him. His name is Edward. One day, he promised he'd do the same for you if anything ever happened to me. If you're reading this, it means he kept that promise. Trust him. And trust yourself. You're stronger than you know. Mom. Callie's voice cracked on the last word. Tears rolled down her cheeks like rivers. She pressed the letter to her chest and sobbed silently. Edward didn't say a word. He just stood beside her, letting her grieve. Later that night, as Callie sat alone in the guest room Edward had given her, a cozy space with warm blankets, soft lights, and more comfort than she'd known in months, she opened the drawer to find a neatly folded folder with her name on it. She hesitated. Inside was a copy of her birth certificate, but something was off. The father's name had always been blank. But on this version. Father, Edward Dean. Callie stared at it in disbelief. Her breath caught. Was this real? Had her mom lied to her? She ran down the hallway, heart pounding harder than ever. She burst into Edward's office. What is this? She demanded, holding up the paper. Edward looked at it. Then looked at her. He nodded slowly. Yes, he said softly. It's true. Callie staggered backward. You're my dad. Edward's eyes shimmered. I didn't know for years. Your mom didn't tell me until after you were born. I wanted to come back, but I had nothing to offer. I was ashamed. I didn't want to be a burden. But you never came back, Callie whispered. I tried, he said, voice cracking. I tried. By the time I cleaned myself up, found a purpose again, she had vanished. Moved, changed jobs. I searched for years. Then one day, I found an obituary. Callie collapsed into the chair across from him. Everything felt unreal. Like she was in a dream she couldn't wake from. But why pretend to be homeless, she asked. Why sit there with a sign? Edward looked at her with something like pride. Because I needed to know. I needed to see who you had become. Not based on what I gave you, but who you were when you had nothing. Suddenly, Edward's phone buzzed. He picked it up. His face changed. What is it? Callie asked. He turned the phone around. A message was on the screen. If you want the girl to stay safe, walk away from her. You're not the only one who knew her mother. V. Callie's blood ran cold. Edward's hand trembled. Victor was threatening her. Not for money. Not for revenge. But for a secret only her mother knew. Edward showed Callie a threatening message from Victor, the former friend turned enemy, who had broken into the mansion and now claimed that Callie was in danger. The message wasn't about money, it hinted at something deeper. Something her mother had known. A secret. Callie's fingers curled tightly around the edge of Edward's desk. What does he mean? You're not the only one who knew her mother, she asked. Edward's face was pale. Claire, your mom, she told me once that there were people who wanted to use her for something. Something she found out while working at a government lab. I never pushed her for details. I thought it was just paranoia. But now. Callie stood slowly, heart beating fast. You think my mom was hiding something important? Edward nodded. Something that could still be dangerous today. Just then, the mansion's alarm system beeped twice, followed by a voice over the intercom, motion detected, front perimeter. They both froze. Edward moved quickly, tapping a few buttons on a screen hidden in the bookshelf. Surveillance cameras popped up on a monitor. At the gate was a man in a dark coat and hat, pacing slowly back and forth. Callie's stomach dropped. That's him. That's Victor. Edward's jaw tightened. He's not just trying to scare us anymore. He's waiting. I have to get you somewhere safe, Edward said, grabbing his coat and keys. Callie hesitated. You're not just going to run, are you? No, he said, locking eyes with her. I'm going to end this. But not without protecting you first. He led her to a hidden garage in the back of the mansion. Inside was a sleek black car with tinted windows. This has bulletproof glass and GPS jamming, he said. Get in. As they pulled out, Edward explained. Years ago, your mother discovered a weakness in a cyber defense system used by major U.S. institutions. She didn't want it falling into the wrong hands. She hid the only copy of the algorithm and left clues only she, and her daughter, could understand. Callie's eyes widened. Wait, you're saying I might know where it is? She once told me, Edward said, that her greatest secret was protected by her greatest love. Callie blinked. Me. They arrived at a remote cabin deep in the woods upstate. Edward said it belonged to a friend he trusted, an ex-military officer who owed him a favor. The moment they stepped inside, a woman with sharp eyes and gray streaks in her braid greeted them. Edward Dean, she said with a smile. Didn't think I'd see you here again. Meet Ava, Edward said. She's a survivalist. If anyone can keep you safe, it's her. Ava led Callie inside and handed her a warm blanket. You'll be safe here. There are cameras, traps, and alarms set around every inch of this place. But Callie couldn't relax. Her thoughts swirled with questions. What was the secret? Was Victor really willing to hurt her for it? Why now? She sat on a wooden chair by the fireplace and stared into the flames. That's when she noticed something strange. A book sticking slightly out from the bookshelf. It looked older than the others. Worn leather. No title. She pulled it free. A name was etched faintly on the back cover. C.M. Claire Monroe. Callie flipped through the pages. It was filled with short notes. Codes. Drawings. Doodles. A few pages had sketches of a small wooden jewelry box, the kind her mom used to keep on the dresser back when they had an apartment in Queens. Suddenly, Callie remembered something. When she was 9, her mom had taught her a song, one she said was just for them. It was about stars and numbers. Callie never understood it. But now, as she hummed it quietly, she realized the numbers were coordinates. She stood up fast. Edward, she called out. He stepped into the room. She showed him the page, and recited the numbers. This is it, isn't it? This is what she left behind. Edward nodded slowly. I think you're right. Callie whispered, we have to find it. The next morning, they geared up and left the cabin before sunrise. Ava gave Edward a military-grade radio and a bag packed with emergency supplies. They drove 4 hours into the mountains near the Hudson River. Using the coordinates from the book, they hiked into the woods until they reached a clearing with an abandoned cottage half swallowed by nature. Inside, they found the same wooden box from her mother's sketches, tucked beneath a loose floorboard. Edward pried it open. Inside was a small silver USB stick. Engraved on the side were the words, "Protect this like you protected her." But just as Edward stood, a gunshot rang out. The wooden beam beside Callie exploded into splinters. She screamed. Edward tackled her to the ground as more shots echoed from the trees. They were under attack. "Run," he shouted, shoving the USB into her pocket. "Get to the car." Callie ran as fast as she could, breath sharp in her throat. Another shot rang out. She didn't look back. She crashed through the woods, branches cutting her arms and face, until she reached the road. But the SUV was empty. And someone stood beside it. A man in a black coat. Victor. Callie tried to turn, but it was too late. He grabbed her arm, yanked her forward, and pressed a cloth over her mouth. Everything went black. Ready for the final part? Chapter 5 will bring everything together, twists, truth, and a powerful ending. Let me know when to continue. Callie uncovered her mother's hidden USB drive, containing a powerful cyber secret only she could protect. But just moments after retrieving it, she was ambushed and kidnapped by Victor, the man who wanted that secret at any cost. Now unconscious, Callie's life, and her mother's legacy, hang in the balance. Callie woke up to darkness. Her head throbbed. Her wrists were tied to the arms of a metal chair, the ropes rough against her skin. Dim light flickered above. The air smelled like rust and mold. Somewhere in the distance, water dripped. Plink. 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 Then came the voice. "I was hoping you wouldn't remember," Victor said, stepping out from the shadows. "But you're more like your mother than I thought." Callie blinked hard. Her mouth was taped. Her pocket was empty. He had taken the USB. Victor circled her like a predator. Claire was smart. Too smart. She could have sold that code for billions. But no. She wanted to protect the world. He laughed bitterly. Noble. But foolish. He leaned down, eyeing her with cruel amusement. "You know what's funny? You were supposed to die with her. That was the plan." Callie's blood turned cold. Victor stood upright. "But now that I have the real key, I don't need Edward. I don't even the drive. You'll tell me what I want, eventually." Edward stood outside the SUV, jaw clenched, heart pounding. He had heard the gunshot, seen Callie vanish. Now he paced in front of the car, holding Ava's satellite radio. "She's gone," he told Ava through the static. "They took her. He's got her." Ava's voice came back, calm and sharp. "Then we take her back. You still have the tracker in your watch?" Edward looked down. A red blinking dot pulsed on the screen. "She has the other half of the signal," he said. He climbed into the SUV and peeled off, speeding through the forest roads. He wasn't just rescuing a girl anymore. He was rescuing his daughter. Back in the dark warehouse, Callie's fear had shifted into something else. Rage. Victor had untied her momentarily to force her to look at a computer. He thought she would crack under pressure. But he underestimated her. Her mom taught her everything: how to spot fake code, how to recognize trap files, how to encrypt her thoughts like a lock. And most importantly, how to distract a villain. "Isn't it funny," she said, finally speaking. "You kidnapped a girl with no money, no friends, but the truth is, you're the one desperate." Victor froze. "You think this is power? Tying up a teenager? You're not a genius. You're just a scared man chasing someone else's legacy." Victor's face turned red. That was her chance. She flipped the chair backward, hard, and kicked him in the leg. He stumbled. Callie rolled to the floor and crawled toward the table. She grabbed a sharp piece of metal and sliced through the ropes just as. Boom! The warehouse door exploded open. Edward stormed in, shotgun in hand. Step away from her, Victor. Victor grabbed Callie as a shield. Put it down or she dies, he screamed. Callie gritted her teeth. Don't do it, Edward. Edward aimed. You know me. I don't miss. Victor laughed. You're bluffing. Edward's hand didn't shake. Callie felt something shift in Victor's grip. She twisted, slammed her elbow into his gut, and Edward fired. The shot rang out. Victor dropped like a stone. Callie stumbled forward, into Edward's arms. He held her tightly. I'm here. You're safe now. Weeks later. Callie stood on the stage at the reopening of a brand new teen tech center in Brooklyn, named after her mother, the Claire Monroe Foundation. Dozens of kids cheered. She looked out into the crowd, her voice steady. I used to think I had no one. That I was alone. But now I know, even the smallest act of kindness can change a life. I gave a stranger all I had, and it turned out, he was exactly the person my mom trusted to give me everything I needed. She smiled at Edward in the front row. He nodded proudly. She continued, my mom believed that love is the greatest kind of legacy. And today, we're going to use her legacy to change lives, just like mine was changed. The audience erupted into applause. Behind her, the center's logo glowed bright. Kindness isn't weakness. It's a key. If you like this story, comment, share and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.